He walked into my courtroom wearing a perfect suit, carrying a leather briefcase, and introducing himself as the smartest person in the room. Judge, I understand the law better than anyone involved in this case, Marcus Vail said confidently. He smiled, his client smiled, and for a moment, everyone watching believed they were looking at a professional attorney who had everything under control. But there was one problem. Marcus Vail was not a lawyer. And the evidence proving it was already sitting in front of me. The fake credentials, the false documents, the legal advice that harmed his own client. He thought he could outsmart a courtroom by pretending to understand the law. It became the worst decision he ever made. Before I take you deeper into this case, make sure you are subscribed for more powerful courtroom stories like this. Comment below with where you are watching from, because this case proves that confidence without truth can collapse in seconds. Stay with me, because one man believed a fake title could make him powerful, but one simple question exposed everything. The case before me involved Marcus Vail and a woman named Sarah Collins. At first glance, it looked like a normal dispute. Sarah was suing Marcus and his client, Richard Hayes, after losing thousands of dollars in a business agreement. Richard claimed he hired Marcus as a legal consultant to protect him during a contract dispute. Marcus claimed he was an experienced attorney who handled everything properly. But Sarah believed Marcus was responsible for misleading both sides. She claimed he gave legal advice without a license, prepared false documents, and convinced Richard to sign an agreement that heavily benefited Marcus. Marcus denied everything. He arrived in court with confidence. He used legal terms. He corrected people. He interrupted questions. He acted like someone who belonged there. That was his first mistake, because a courtroom does not measure knowledge by how confidently someone speaks. It measures facts. I asked Marcus to state his professional qualifications. I have 20 years of legal experience. Where? Several private firms. Which firms? He paused, then answered, I have worked independently. Interesting, I asked. Are you licensed to practice law? Yes. Which state? Multiple jurisdictions. Can you provide your license numbers? His attorney objected. But the question was simple. A real attorney knows their license information. Marcus looked uncomfortable. He said, I do not have those documents with me. That was the first crack. A lawyer does not need preparation to prove they are a lawyer. I asked him to provide the information after the hearing. He agreed, but Sarah's attorney already had something else. A public licensing search. The record showed no attorney named Marcus Vail was licensed in the state, no active license, no previous license, no legal standing. The courtroom became quiet. Marcus adjusted his jacket. He smiled. I may be listed under a different name. A different name. Another explanation. I asked, have you ever been licensed to practice law? Yes. Where? Internationally. Which country? Several. Can you provide proof? Again, silence. The problem was coming clear. Marcus had created the appearance of expertise without the foundation behind it. I asked Richard why he hired Marcus. Richard explained that Marcus approached him after a business disagreement. He claimed he could save him hundreds of thousands of dollars. He showed him certificates, business cards, legal documents. Everything looked professional. That was the danger. Fake professionals rarely look fake. They copy the appearance of credibility. I asked Richard what Marcus charged. $25,000. For legal representation? Yes. Did Marcus tell you he was an attorney? Yes. Did you believe him? Yes. Richard looked embarrassed. But the person responsible for deception was not the person who trusted. It was the person who lied. I displayed Marcus's business card. It said, Marcus Vail, attorney at law. I asked him, did you create this card? Yes. Did you represent yourself? As an attorney? Yes. Were you one? He hesitated. I provided legal services. That was not the question. I repeated. Were you licensed? No answer. Then Sarah's attorney presented the contract Marcus prepared, the agreement between Richard and Sarah. Marcus claimed it was legally sound. But one section immediately stood out. It contained incorrect legal references, wrong statutes, wrong procedures, and language copied from unrelated cases. Marcus had not written a legal agreement. He had assembled pieces of documents he did not understand. I asked him, "Did you draft this contract yourself?" "Yes." "Did you verify the legal references?" "Yes." "Where did you verify them?" He paused. "Online." That answer revealed everything. Using the internet is not the problem. Pretending to have legal authority you do not possess is. I asked Sarah what happened after she received the contract. She said she trusted it because Richard told her it was prepared by an attorney. She signed. Later, when the dispute escalated, she discovered the agreement contained mistakes that weakened her position. I asked Marcus why he prepared a document that harmed both parties. He answered, a small error. A small error. That was how Marcus described a document built on false authority. Then I asked the question that changed the entire case. Mr. Vale, if you are not a licensed attorney, why did you allow people to believe you were one? Marcus looked at his attorney, then back at me. For the first time, the confidence disappeared because he realized something. The courtroom was no longer examining his contract. It was examining his identity, and the next evidence would prove that Marcus did not simply exaggerate his qualifications. He built an entire career on a lie. The courtroom had changed. At the beginning of the hearing, Marcus Vale walked in like he owned the room. He corrected people. He used complicated words. He acted like everyone else was behind him. But once the question of his legal license appeared, the confidence started disappearing because Marcus had built his entire image on one assumption, that nobody would check. He was wrong. I asked Sarah's attorney to present the licensing records. The documents were official. The search covered the state bar records. No Marcus Vale, no license number, no admission record, no history as an attorney. I turned toward Marcus. Mr. Vale, do you dispute these records? Yes. What part? They are incomplete. Why? Because my experience is not reflected there. Experience, another word that sounded impressive, but experience does not replace a license. I asked, have you ever passed a bar examination? Yes. Where? Several places. Which ones? He paused, then gave another vague answer. I asked, can you name one? Silence. That silence told the story. A person who truly has legal qualifications does not struggle to identify where they earned them. I asked Richard why he trusted Marcus. He explained that Marcus presented himself as someone who understood complicated legal situations. He attended meetings. He prepared documents. He spoke confidently. Richard admitted he never personally checked Marcus's credentials. I believed him because he sounded like he knew what he was doing. That sentence was important because deception often works the same way. People do not trust a person because of a piece of paper. They trust because the person creates confidence. Marcus understood that he did not need people to verify him. He needed them to believe him. I asked Marcus about the title printed on his business cards, attorney at law. Yes. Did you authorize that wording? Yes. Why? Because I provide legal services. That answer was carefully chosen. But it avoided the issue. Providing legal services does not automatically make someone an attorney. I asked, did you tell clients you were licensed? Yes. Were you? No. The courtroom became silent because for the first time, Marcus admitted the truth, not completely, but enough. His attorney tried to explain that Marcus was a consultant, that he was not trying to mislead anyone. So I asked one question. If he was only a consultant, why did he represent himself as an attorney? No answer. I displayed emails between Marcus and Richard. The first email began, "Your attorney, Marcus Vail, recommends the following action." Marcus had written it himself. He referred to himself as the attorney, not Richard, not another person, himself. I asked Marcus, "Did you write this email?" "Yes." "Did you call yourself an attorney?" "Yes." "Was that accurate?" No answer. The problem was becoming obvious. Marcus was not accidentally mistaken for a lawyer. He created that misunderstanding. Then Sarah's attorney presented another document, a payment record. Richard paid Marcus $25,000. The payment description said, "Legal representation services." I asked Marcus whether he accepted that money. "Yes." "Did you provide legal representation?" "Yes." "Were you authorized to do so?" Silence. A courtroom does not need dramatic moments. Sometimes a simple, unanswered question says everything. I asked Richard what happened after he followed Marcus's advice. He explained that the contract Marcus created caused serious problems. The agreement contained incorrect legal language. It failed to protect Richard's interests. And when the dispute reached another attorney, Richard learned something shocking. The document was not professionally prepared. It was a collection of copied sections that did not apply to his situation. I asked Marcus where he got the legal language. He said, "From previous work." "Your previous legal work?" "Yes." "Where is the record of that work?" He could not provide one. The pattern continued. Claims, no proof, titles, no credentials, confidence, no foundation. Then Sarah's attorney presented the most damaging evidence, a website, Marcus's professional website. The headline said, "Former Supreme Court legal advisor with 20 years of experience." I asked Marcus, "Did you create this website?" "Yes." "Were you ever a Supreme Court legal advisor?" He hesitated. "No." "Then why does your website say that?" He looked uncomfortable. I meant I studied Supreme Court decisions. That explanation changed nothing. The words were chosen to create a false impression. And false impressions are not accidents when they are repeated. I displayed another section of the website. It listed license, attorney, courtroom specialist, legal representative. None of those claims were supported. I asked Marcus why he used those titles. He finally said, "Because clients trust someone who appears experienced." That sentence was the closest he came to telling the truth. He understood exactly why the image mattered. He knew people would trust the appearance of authority, but he made one mistake. He brought that image into a courtroom where evidence mattered more than appearance. And then the clerk presented the final document, a complaint filed years earlier against Marcus in another state. A complaint that included the same accusation. Pretending to be a lawyer, Marcus thought nobody would find it. But the record existed. And it showed this was not the first time someone questioned his identity. It was the first time someone forced him to answer. The complaint from another state changed the direction of the entire hearing. Until that moment, Marcus Vail had tried to make the case look like a misunderstanding, a wrong title, a communication issue, a small mistake, but the complaint showed something different. This was not the first time Marcus had created the appearance of being a lawyer. It was a pattern. I asked the clerk to display the complaint. The document showed that several years earlier, a former client had reported Marcus for providing legal advice while falsely claiming to be an attorney. The details were familiar. The same confident introductions, the same promises of legal expertise, the same professional-looking documents, the same missing license. I turned toward Marcus. "Mr. Vail, were you aware of this complaint?" "Yes." "Did you respond?" "Yes." "What was your response?" that I was misunderstood. Again, the same explanation. Whenever the evidence became uncomfortable, Marcus called it a misunderstanding, but misunderstandings happen once. Pause happened repeatedly. I asked, "Did you stop using the title attorney after this complaint?" He paused. "No." "Did you remove the claim that you were licensed?" "No." "Did you inform future clients about the complaint?" "No." The courtroom became silent because honesty does not hide inconvenient information. I asked Marcus why he continued. His answer was surprising. "I had the knowledge." Knowledge. Another word people use when they want to replace qualification. Knowing something about law does not make someone a lawyer. Reading medical books does not make someone a doctor. Studying buildings does not make someone an architect. Professional titles exist because people need to know who is qualified to guide them. Marcus wanted the authority without accepting the responsibility. I asked Richard how much damage resulted from Marcus's advice. He explained that after signing the incorrect agreement, he lost a business opportunity worth nearly $100,000. He also spent additional money hiring a real attorney to fix the mistakes. I asked Marcus whether he believed he should be responsible. No. Why? Because Richard chose to follow my advice. That answer revealed his thinking. He wanted the benefits of being treated like an attorney, but when his advice caused harm, he wanted the protection of being just a consultant. He wanted both sides. Authority without accountability. I asked, "Did Richard hire you because you were a consultant?" No. Why did he hire you? Because he believed I was an attorney. That was the key point. The entire relationship was based on a false identity. Then Sarah's attorney presented a series of messages between Marcus and potential clients. One message said, "I have handled hundreds of court cases." Another said, "I know how judges think." Another said, "I can represent you better than most attorneys." I asked Marcus, "Did you send these messages?" "Yes." "Were they accurate?" "Yes." "Can you provide records of the hundreds of cases you handled?" No answer. The confidence disappeared again. I asked him, "How many cases have you personally handled in court?" He said, "I have assisted with many other professionals." Which professionals? He could not name them. The problem was not that Marcus lacked intelligence. The problem was that he used intelligence to create an illusion. I asked the licensing expert to explain why legal licenses exist. She explained that attorneys must meet education requirements, pass examinations, follow ethical rules, and remain accountable to professional authorities. A person without a license avoids all of those responsibilities. I asked Marcus whether he followed attorney ethics rules. Yes. Who oversees your compliance? No answer. That was the difference. Real professionals are accountable to someone. Marcus was accountable only to himself, and that was dangerous. Then the most damaging evidence appeared, a recorded conversation between Marcus and Richard. Richard had contacted Marcus after discovering the licensing issue. He asked a simple question, "Are you actually a lawyer?" Marcus responded, "Does it really matter if I know what I'm doing?" The courtroom became completely silent because that sentence revealed everything. Marcus did not believe the title mattered. He believed only the result mattered, but the law disagrees. The process matters. The qualifications matter. The trust people place in professionals matters. I asked Marcus about the recording. "Is that your voice?" "Yes." "Did you say those words?" "Yes." "Do you believe being licensed matters?" He paused, then answered, "Yes." But his previous words had already answered. The problem was never only what Marcus did, it was what he believed. He believed confidence could replace credentials. He believed documents could replace qualifications. He believed people would accept the image without checking the truth. But the courtroom had checked. And now the final piece of evidence was ready, a document Marcus himself submitted, a document that claimed he had represented a client in court, a document with one major problem. The court record showed Marcus was never there because the person listed as the attorney was not Marcus Vail. It was someone else entirely, and that discovery would reveal the biggest lie he had ever told. The document Marcus Vail submitted was supposed to prove his experience. Instead, it proved the biggest lie of his career. He had presented it as evidence that he had successfully represented a client in court, a victory, a legal achievement, a reason people should trust him. But there was one problem. The court records showed Marcus Vail was never the attorney on that case. The person listed was someone else. I asked the court clerk to display the official record. The name was clear. The attorney of record was Daniel Foster, not Marcus Vail. I turned toward Marcus. Mr. Vail, why does this document suggest you represented a client when the court records show someone else? Marcus adjusted his papers. I worked with him. Were you the attorney? No. Did you tell clients you were the attorney? He hesitated. Yes, that answer changed everything. Because working with a professional is not the same as being one. A person can assist an attorney. A person can study legal documents. A person can understand parts of the law. But none of those things give someone the right to claim a license they do not have. I asked Marcus why he used another attorney's case as proof of his own experience. He said, I was showing my involvement. Did you clearly explain that you were not the attorney? No, another silence, another answer that mattered, because the issue was not whether Marcus knew about the case. The issue was whether he allowed people to believe something false, and the evidence showed he did. I asked Richard how Marcus convinced him to hire him. Richard explained that Marcus showed him a portfolio. Inside were court documents, legal strategies, case summaries. Everything was arranged to create one impression that Marcus was a highly experienced attorney. But when the documents were examined carefully, many were connected to other lawyers, not Marcus. He collected the appearance of experience from other people's work, then presented it as his own. I asked Marcus, did you create this portfolio? Yes. Did you include documents from cases where you were not the attorney? Yes. Did you tell clients that? No. The courtroom became quiet because the answer was simple. He wanted people to see the result, not the truth behind it. Then Sarah's attorney presented another piece of evidence, a recorded advertisement from Marcus's website. In the video, Marcus said, I have spent decades inside courtrooms fighting for clients. I asked, did you make this advertisement? Yes. How many years have you spent inside courtrooms as a licensed attorney? He looked down. The room became completely silent. The man who spent the entire hearing speaking like an expert had finally admitted the most important fact. He was not what he claimed to be. I asked Marcus why he used the title. His answer was revealing. Because people do not listen to consultants. There it was, the reason behind everything. He did not believe the truth was enough. He believed he needed a title to be respected. But instead of earning that title, he created a false one. I asked the licensing expert whether this type of behavior creates risks. She explained that legal advice can seriously affect people's money, businesses, and rights. A mistake from a licensed attorney can be reviewed. A person pretending to be an attorney avoids that entire system. That was why Marcus's actions were serious. Not because he used the wrong words, because people trusted him with decisions that required proper qualifications. I asked Richard what happened after he discovered the truth. He said, I felt embarrassed. I stopped him. Why? He answered, because I thought I should have known. But that was not the lesson. The responsibility belonged to the person who created the deception. Trusting someone who presents themselves as a professional is not the same as being careless. The person who lies is responsible for the lie. Then Marcus's attorney made one final argument. He said, "My client may not have followed traditional paths, but he clearly understands legal matters. That may have been true, but understanding law and being authorized to practice law are different things." I asked Marcus, "Do you believe a person should be able to call themselves a doctor if they understand medicine but never received a medical license?" "No." "Why not?" "Because people need to know who is qualified." Exactly the same principle applied here. I asked, "Then why did you believe it was acceptable to call yourself an attorney without a license?" Marcus had no answer. The confidence was gone, the performance was over. But there was still one final issue, the money. Because Marcus had collected thousands of dollars by presenting himself as something he was not, and the next evidence would reveal exactly how much he earned from the lie. The question was no longer whether Marcus Vail was a real attorney. That answer was already clear. The question now was something else. How much damage had he caused by pretending to be one? Marcus had built his entire business around a false impression. He charged people because they believed they were receiving professional legal services, but they were not hiring a lawyer. They were hiring someone who wanted them to believe he was one. I asked the clerk to display Marcus's financial records. The first payment appeared $25,000 from Richard Hayes' description. Legal representation services. I turned toward Marcus. "Did you receive this payment?" "Yes." "Was it for legal representation?" "Yes." "Were you licensed to provide legal representation?" No answer. The silence was enough. Then more payments appeared: $18,000, $12,500, $30,000. Different clients, different cases, same description, legal services. I asked Marcus, "How many clients paid you believing you were an attorney?" "I cannot remember." Interesting. He remembered his experience. He remembered his achievements. He remembered why people should trust him. But he could not remember the people who paid him. I asked the financial investigator to explain the records. She confirmed that Marcus received over $200,000 from clients who believed they were hiring a licensed attorney. The courtroom became quiet because this was not one misunderstanding. This was a business model. I asked Marcus whether he refunded any of those payments after learning people believed he was licensed. No. Why? Because I provided valuable services based on a false identity. That was the issue. A person cannot sell something by falsely claiming to be something they are not. I asked Marcus, if a person paid you $25,000 because they believed you were a licensed attorney, would you agree that belief was important to their decision? Yes. Did you create that belief? No. I displayed his business cards, his website, his emails, his advertisements. The evidence answered the question. Yes. He created it. I asked Sarah about the impact of Marcus' actions. She explained that because of the incorrect contract, she spent months dealing with legal problems. She hired another attorney. She paid additional fees. She lost business opportunities. But the financial loss was not the only damage. She said, I trusted him with something important, and he used that trust to sell me something he was not. That sentence explained the entire case. The problem was not just money. It was trust. Professional titles exist because people rely on them. When someone takes a title they did not earn, they take away someone else's ability to make an informed decision. I asked Marcus if he believed clients had the right to know his qualifications before paying him. Yes. Did you provide that information? Yes. I displayed his website again, Lyons Attorney. Courtroom specialist, former legal advisor. I asked, which part clearly explains that you were not licensed? No answer, because there was no such explanation. Then Marcus made his biggest mistake. He said, people cared more about results than titles. I looked at him. That may be what you believed. I paused. But people have a right to know who is giving them legal advice. The courtroom became silent, because that was the difference. Marcus thought the title was about respect. The law viewed it as responsibility. Then the licensing expert explained that a person who falsely represents themselves as an attorney can face serious consequences because it damages public trust in the legal system. I asked Marcus whether he ever warned clients, I am not a licensed attorney. He admitted no. That single answer destroyed his remaining defense, because if he believed the title did not matter, he could have been honest. He could have said, I have legal knowledge, but I am not an attorney. But he did not. He chose the title. He chose the appearance. He chose the trust that came with it. Then Richard's attorney presented the final piece of evidence, a private message Marcus sent to another person before taking Richard's case. The message said, people pay more when they think they are dealing with a real attorney. The courtroom went completely silent because that sentence revealed his intention. He was not confused. He was not misunderstood. He knew exactly why the title mattered, and he used it. I looked at Marcus. The man who entered believing he could outsmart the courtroom had finally been exposed by his own words. But before I delivered the ruling, there was one final question. What happens when someone builds an entire career on a lie? The answer would determine what Marcus lost, and it was much more than money. Marcus Vail entered the courtroom believing the biggest risk was losing money. He was wrong. Money was the easiest thing to replace. What Marcus lost was something much harder to rebuild: trust. For years, he created an image of himself as someone with authority. He wore the suits. He used legal language. He carried professional documents. He spoke with confidence, and people believed him. But the courtroom revealed the difference between looking qualified and actually being qualified. The evidence showed that Marcus Luss presented himself as a licensed attorney when he was not, accepted payments for legal representations, created documents that made clients believe he had legal authority, used another attorney's work to create a false impression of experience, continued the same behavior even after previous complaints. This was not one mistake. It was a choice repeated over time. I issued my ruling. Richard Hayes was entitled to compensation for the losses caused by Marcus's false representation and improper advice. The agreement Marcus prepared could not be treated as a reliable legal document because it was created under a false claim of professional authority. The payments collected for legal services were subject to further review. The evidence regarding Marcus's activities was preserved and referred to the appropriate authorities for possible action. But the most important part of the ruling was not the money. It was the message. A professional title is not decoration. It is a responsibility. Anyone can print a business card. Anyone can create a website. Anyone can memorize legal words. But a title earned through education, testing, and accountability cannot be replaced by confidence. Marcus's attorney tried one final argument. My client helped people. He provided valuable information. I looked at him. Helping people does not give someone permission to misrepresent their qualifications. The courtroom became silent because that was the lesson Marcus needed to understand. Good intentions do not erase false claims. Knowledge does not replace authorization. Confidence does not replace accountability. After the hearing, Richard told me something important. He said, I feel embarrassed that I believed him, but the truth was different. The person who should feel responsible was not the person who trusted. It was the person who used that trust. Marcus understood exactly why people believed him. That was why he created the image. He knew people were more likely to trust someone who appeared official, someone who looked experienced, someone who sounded certain, and he used that confidence as a substitute for the qualification he never had. Months later, several former clients came forward. They shared similar stories. They remembered the same introduction, the same promises, the same claim that Marcus could handle complicated legal matters, the same moment when they discovered the truth. They were not careless. They were deceived. That difference mattered. Because Marcus wanted everyone to believe his clients simply failed to verify him. But the evidence showed he worked hard to make verification unnecessary. He gave people the answer he wanted them to believe. I am your attorney, even when he was not. The most memorable moment of the case happened near the end. I asked Marcus one simple question: why did you not simply tell people you were a legal consultant? He had no answer, because that was the question he could never escape. If he truly believed his knowledge was enough, honesty would have been easy. He could have said, I am not a lawyer, but I can help you understand information. Instead, he chose a different path. He chose the title. He chose the authority. He chose the trust that came with it. And eventually, that choice brought him into a courtroom where the truth could be examined. Marcus entered believing he could outsmart Judge Judy. He believed confidence could replace credentials. He believed complicated words could hide simple facts. But the courtroom did not need complicated answers. It needed one question: are you who you claim to be? And the evidence answered. No, the fake lawyer did not lose because he lacked intelligence. He lost because he used intelligence to create a false image. He did not fail because he did not understand the law. He failed because he ignored the responsibility that comes with it. The final lesson was simple. A person can pretend to have authority. A person can imitate professionalism. A person can fool people for a while, but eventually someone checks, someone asks questions, someone looks at the records, and when that happens, the truth does not need confidence. It only needs evidence. If this case reminded you that honesty matters more than appearances, like this video, subscribe for more courtroom stories where deception meets accountability. Share this story with someone who believes facts will always defeat fake confidence. Then comment below. At what moment did you realize Marcus was not a real lawyer? Because Marcus thought his performance was enough. But the courtroom proved the truth was stronger than the act.